Hello, I'm Dennis, and I'd like to tell you my story about how I became a Christian after being an atheist for 24 years of my life. So, I was born in Turkey to Turkish parents who did not believe in God, basically. And even though they were atheistic, they never really forced any of their beliefs upon me. They just left me to make my own decisions. So, I grew up observing things. And as I was growing up, God, even in the beginning, God never really made much sense to me at all. Anything with spirituality, anything that has to do with religion or God, it just sounded funny and ridiculous to me. So, and of course, as I was growing up, I was exposed to all these theories of evolution, Big Bang, and trillions and gorillions of planets like ours existing. I couldn't fit God into any of that. Also, as I was growing up, I observed people that said they believed in God, religious people. And to me, they weren't any different from those that said they didn't believe in God. They said they believed in God, but they gave very little value to God in their lives. They said they believed in the creator of all things, but they didn't really know who God was, nor did they seem to want to know or just care to know. They said they believed in a book of guidance written by God through a prophet, but the vast majority of them never bothered to read it. And those that did, they said they read it in a language that they didn't even understand. They said they believed in heaven and hell and a judgment day coming, an afterlife, but they still lived in sin with seemingly no remorse, and they still had the same strivings for worldly things, just as those that say, I don't believe in God do. The same strivings for material things, the same concerns, the same interests and worries, and many of them were thinking they were going to go to heaven just because they were born in the right country, in a family that had the right religion. So I just couldn't make much sense out of it. And I will talk to these religious people and I would ask them questions. And to my questions, I would either get no answers or everyone would say something different. But I still liked religious people. I was okay with them. I liked them. I was nice to them. And even though I was nice to these people, I will still think that anyone who believed in God or anything that has to do with spirituality or just any kind of religion, I thought they were not very smart. I would kind of look down upon them. The concept of miracles and God was silly enough, but when I came across people that said, you have to be an expert in Arabic to know what God says and understand the directions that he's giving, and when I found out that the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, married a girl at 6 years old and had sexual intercourse with her at 9 years old, and then he saw the wife of his son-in-law, and then he married her because she was really beautiful, and then he abolished adoption because people were upset he did that. And these promises about receiving 70-something virgins when you get to heaven, and all these other verses about other stuff and commands to kill and violence. I thought, oh, is that what people believe? Oh. But as I said, I didn't have any problems with them. I will sit down and talk with them, and I will talk to them about evolution, Big Bang, and look at how many planets there are, and all those atheistic arguments. But I was being a hypocrite as well, because I wasn't talking to them about Big Bang and evolution and whatever else because I did my own research about them. I just basically had also heard about them and just made more sense to me than the other option. So, and if you were to ask me about what I knew about evolution or Big Bang or how things came to be, I'd be like, I don't know. Stars crashed, time passed, and here we are, I guess. I mean, that's what I would say probably. But yeah, I thought I didn't have to know everything, and that's obviously true. You don't have to know everything, and you cannot know everything. But I was being a hypocrite as well because I didn't know what I said I believed in either. So it was basically just fed unresearched opinions. Is unresearched the word? Basically fed and unresearched opinions versus other fed and unresearched opinions. Well, I actually believed, since everything was made up of small molecules that move around but also somehow hold things together, I thought looking at nature and plant life and animals and all kinds of creatures, even creatures such as ants, how they can so intelligently communicate with one another and how there's seemingly a purpose behind every single thing that they do. And just how brilliant they are as a creature. I thought, regardless of how small their brains are, if they can do that, I thought there's either something within water or the oxygen within those molecules that was responsible for the intelligence of living beings, because it seemed like those things like water and oxygen were the common element within the living things, and I thought, well, maybe there's something within them, but I never equated that intelligence with God, or just like God wasn't even in my mind, it was totally out of my mind. But anyways, growing up, my childhood and teen years, they were not the best, mostly due to family issues, and as I was growing up, video games were my everything. My mom says there's a picture of me lying around somewhere where I'm playing video games at 3 years old, as she says, but this is the best I could find, where I think I'm at 4 or 5 years old, and from that age on, up until the age of 24, I never let go of playing video games. My whole life was just built on video games. I mean, really, if I had maybe, let's say, 10 hours of free time within the day, I would spend those 10 hours either playing video games or talking about video games, watching something about video games, or just browsing the internet or something. And even though I didn't have the best childhood and my whole life was just video games, I still enjoyed living. I liked talking to people. I liked people. And as with most other people, just the state of the world and evil going around will bother me slightly. But yeah, maybe at around 16 or 17 years old, I started doing a little bit of research just to find out, where is all this evil coming from? Like, what's the truth behind all this? What's the reasoning behind all these things that are happening? Because, see, evil doesn't make sense either. Just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't do anyone any good in the long run. It just, and compromising into evil just for the sake of quote-unquote greater good, it just corrupts people. And we all want love and peace in one way or another. So why couldn't we just be content with enough and just play video games all day, right? So that's what I thought. So I started doing a little bit of research, and in my researches I came across some stuff. As a starting point, when I first looked into things like the events at 9/11, I thought, well, there's a little bit more than what media is presenting. There seems to be a lot more than what people are saying there's going on, and many people agree and see it now. We just ask a few questions like who benefits, and with all the things that got revealed over the years, it is easy to see. So I started looking into things, events, and things that are going wrong in the world, and after looking into things for years, I found out, well, almost all of the root cause of evil is actually pouring down from a group of very powerful people. And just call them whatever you want to call them, the Illuminati, the Freemasons, the Masons, the people behind New World Order, the global elites, just call them what you want to call them, but they seem to control the bank and the money and thus the value of things. So they had power over governments, education system, armies, and they had people in every single high position seemingly, and they controlled everything by either blackmail or money. And so I was intrigued, and I started looking more into these people. I researched, and I found out after years that these people are actually religious. They're actually Satanists, real, actual Satanists. And okay, so imagine how silly it is for an atheist to find out that the most powerful people in the world were supposed to be the wisest, and you know, all those things are actually religious. But not only are they religious, but they worship the devil. Though that did explain to me why they did some of the things that they did. Evil for the sake of evil, I call it. Like, you can see why a certain criminal does a certain act of evil. Like, he has a purpose set in mind, or has a reason as to why he's doing, even like a mentally unstable one. You can see how he got there, like why he's doing the things that he does. But when I looked into these people, I couldn't really understand why they did some of the things that they did. Like the effort to go to these extreme lengths to do evil, I just couldn't see why they were doing it. Because they seemingly had everything this world can offer and even more, but they will just do these inhuman acts of evil and just like start wars for even more of seemingly nothing. So with these group of people, all I saw was just evil for the sake of evil. Like, when I looked into things that they did, it bothered me. And I mean, okay, see, I thought I was a tough guy, right? I thought I was a pretty hardened person, because I grew up with the internet culture. I saw all kinds of gore, all kinds of immoralities, all kinds of disgusting things. And see, you don't even have to go around looking for these kind of things, especially if you're hanging around in forums and certain image boards and just internet as a whole. And And I remember in middle school, the last years of middle school, the phones being able to play videos was a very new thing back then. And some kid brought his phone to class, and on his phone he showed a video of some soldiers decapitating like 2 captives with knives, and just went around and showed it to the whole class. And as I said, this was middle school, not even high school, just middle school. So growing up in this kind of culture and seeing all those things, I thought I was a pretty tough, hardened person. I wouldn't really easily be shocked by anything. But when I saw some of these things that these guys did, these Satanists did, it bothered me. It really bothered me. Like, I don't want to go into detail, but they would basically sacrifice people and just children and torture them and scare them, just evil for the sake of evil. Like, there's this inhuman element to what they do, and didn't really make any sense. The kind of stuff that would make you just, weep on the ground and cry yourself to sleep. And this is coming from a guy who thought he was a pretty tough guy, right? And so I kept doing on research, and as is the case with the internet, if you're good at it, this is the case with the internet. If you know where you're looking at, you can find a lot of stuff. And I found out, again, with evidence as good as any, that spiritual realm is real. Like, there is something more than just the materials, just the brain, just more than something than this. Like, there is this non-material intelligent order that definitely existed. And I found out, well, spirits exist. I found out that people had spirits and all kinds of things. Like, I thought you could maybe possibly explain the existence of this extremely intelligent material order by just some random chance and explosions happening and time passing. I don't know. Like, as if time is this mystical thing that can give intelligence to things where there is none to give by just time passing. But anyway, but as I said, there's no way you can explain this non-material intelligent order by random chance and evolution and Big Bang or anything. There's no way you can explain a spiritual world with that kind of theories. So I, who used to think everything was just the materials and everything was just the brain, I realized, well, okay, there is a God. Like, there is a creator. There is something a lot more than what I used to believe. So I started praying. Yeah, I started praying because I knew about concepts like prayer. And so if there is such a thing as prayer, God must hear and he must care, right? So I started praying, and I started asking a lot of questions. And I mean, a lot of questions, like, why this and why that? Like, why do you let this happen? How come this is a thing? And all these questions I would keep on asking to God. But so when I was asking these questions, I wasn't being patronizing or arrogant. Just like, from a pure heart, I just wanted to know and understand, like, what is going on. And I prayed for the truth because I didn't know what truth was. I didn't know who God was. I didn't know if Buddhism was true or Christianity was true or Islam or Hinduism or whatever else out there. So I asked God to lead me to truth. And I actually started reading Quran first, figuring there will be one in our home in a bookshelf somewhere. So, and as I was reading the Quran, there was a lot of parts where I thought, will the creator of the whole universe really say such things and command such things? But, I was a very new believer in God back then, and I realized that everything I knew up until that point was wrong. So it was time to be humble and just try to understand and see if there's any truth in it. But still, as I was reading the Quran, I still was praying for the truth. I kept on praying to God to lead me to truth and just show me who he is. And as some random guy in Turkey who's never been to a church, never ever met a Christian, don't know who Jesus is, don't know what Christianity teaches, never ever read the Bible. So this guy kept coming across Bible verses. These Bible verses that will specifically answer the questions that I would ask to God. I will start doing research on stuff and like not even religious things, and Bible verses will show up, or just I will watch a video and a guy will randomly quote a Bible verse, and I will remember these what I thought to be random idioms, like random anonymous words, such as render unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar and render unto God what belongs to God, and let he who is without sin be the first to cast a stone and turn the other cheek, and all these things. They will kind of like start echoing in my mind, And I was like, they would kind of also answer the questions that I asked, but I didn't know why I was thinking those thoughts, why they're echoing. And I will research on them, and I will find out, well, they were in the Bible. And these kind of things happened so much to the point I just paused reading the Quran and I picked up the Bible. I picked up the New Testament, to be more specific. Injil is what we call it. And I started reading. And at this point, I didn't know much about the Quran or the Bible or anything at all, really. I thought, as Muslims claim, Bible was one of the series of the books, and Quran was the fourth book, and supposedly the New Testament is the third book. So I thought, well, might as well start from the third book of the series, like, if this is happening. So that's why I started reading the New Testament. And as I was reading the New Testament, especially in certain parts, there was this, without going into Christian terminology, I would feel this tangible, this like overwhelming sense of peace, like almost like a thin cloth that's made out of peace and love, and it's just like surrounding me. And I don't know how to describe it. That's the best I can describe it. And I never had that kind of feeling before. It didn't happen while I was reading the Quran. And as I was reading the New Testament, there wasn't any point where I asked, would God really say such a thing? But I had a lot of other questions. I had a lot of atheistic questions and a lot of stuff that I didn't understand. But yeah, I kept on reading the New Testament, and I started asking and praying in Jesus' name, just as the New Testament says. And especially in that period of time, I've received incredible amounts of grace. Like whatever, without exaggerating, whatever I asked to God, whatever I asked for, God somehow granted me. Like some within months, some within the same day. And of course, when I was asking things, I wasn't like, Lord, please give me 10 mansions and 5 cars and a pet giraffe or anything like that. And some of my prayers were answered in such an undeniably supernatural way and so quick. Like the atheist remnant within me just couldn't discredit it. So yeah, I kept on doing a lot of research. I kept on asking a lot of questions to God. I kept on praying, and I had a few supernatural experiences. I had a lot of confirmations, and now today I have no doubt, zero doubt, that the Holy Bible is true and Jesus Christ himself is Lord. So, and if you do know that God exists but have some questions, have some doubts, just ask for answers from the Lord. He really does answer all those questions. He really does hear all prayers, and he actually wants us to ask and seek and just show that you care. And he does have a promise for those that ask and seek and keep knocking on his door. And neither is there anything wrong with researching and asking and just like looking around, because obviously the creator of the whole world is not threatened by this, right? And if you don't know that God exists, but maybe you're an atheist or an agnostic or even a deist and you're not really sure, I will strongly suggest that you do a little bit of research. Because, okay, even if there's this extremely little chance that God exists, it must be really important to know, right? Like, must be really important to know if he does, and if he does, who he is. And if you're not too proud, if your ego isn't controlling you in that sense, I will also extremely suggest that you pray for 10 seconds. Just when no one's around, when you're waking up or just going to sleep, just for 10 seconds, go and say, God, if you do really exist and if you care, please show me the truth. But like that's not even 10 seconds, that's like 5 seconds, and you have nothing to lose but those 5 seconds every day maybe. But I guarantee that God will hold your hand if you take a step towards him. And the Lord really doesn't ask for much. He really doesn't ask for much, and he cares about you, and he wants you regardless of where you may have been, what you may have done, or what you may have taught or believed. And he does exist. That's the best news I can give you. And he does promise better days. Like, in the truest sense of freedom, he promises being free from yourself and free by knowing the truth. So yeah, give God a chance. Thanks a lot for listening. God bless you.